Thank you for tuning into the All Funds Network. My name is Mike Schroeder. Today we're here with Styler Steinke, and we're joined by David Madden from Wintrust Bank. David, thanks so much for joining us.
Mike, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. Look forward to talking to you guys.
Absolutely. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Richey. Richey provides audit and tax services for alternative investment funds. You could find the link to their website and contact information below in the description. Now back to the episode. Quick recap here on what we're doing. So this is part of the short fund series. Basically, the idea is for emerging managers. We're having conversations with banks, auditors, lawyers. Today's topic with David, we're going to be talking about banking, and we'll get into all the kind of things that you need to know as you get into a banking relationship. But David, why don't you kick it off? Tell us, if you want to give us a quick on Wintrust, and then just talk about does a fund need a bank account? That's the first question I'll tee you up with.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I'll tell you, myself, I come from 20 plus years in the financial services sector. I have experience in prime brokerage and other financial areas. I'm currently working for, as you mentioned, Wintrust Bank. And keep in mind today that these thoughts are my own, just from an industry kind of expert and not of Wintrust's. So to answer your question, Mike, first and foremost, do funds need bank accounts? Yes, they do. Generally, funds are going to need two kind of core accounts. And the two core accounts that they'll need are what we call the subscription redemption account. That's going to be on the investment manager level. And then there's a second account called the operations account that's generally put on the GP account level. So the purpose of the subscription redemption account, that's going to be for your investors to send money into and out of. Generally, the accounts are put on your fund administrator's platform. And the reason for that is the fund administrator is going to do what's known as the AML KYC. So they're going to do, and we call that the investor servicing. So what that means is any money's coming into and out of the funds, they're going to monitor it, they're going to track it, and they're going to control it. So that's why when you speak to kind of your lawyers, when you're initially launching your fund, they're the ones that are going to send you specifically to folks like ourselves, a more niche bank that's going to focus on providing you that subscription redemption account. The second account you're going to need then is going to be what's called the operating account. And that's more like a business bank account that'll be set up just for the fund's general expenses and management fees.
Cool. And that's actually a good tee up here for the second question I had. We don't need to mention like specific names, but like, does every bank work with funds? Like, I have a real estate property, and I have a bank account through Chase. Does every bank offer services to funds, or are there some kind of exclusions?
Not all banks will offer this type of service. And again, this goes back to why when you are launching your fund, you do want to ask that lawyer, that auditor, that administrator, hey, who are the specific banks that are focusing in this area? Remember, from a banking perspective, having funds come in from potentially hundreds of individuals is generally not a good thing for a bank account. That's why banks like us will rely on our fund administrator to help and do all of that AML KYC. So to answer your question, it is a very kind of niche type of business that, yes, only certain banks will provide.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Dave, obviously that comes up quite a bit on the front end of, what are the requirements to open a bank account for a new fund manager is launching? Obviously, they're offering docs, other aspects that you guys are going to ask for. To your point, do they have a fund administrator? What are some of the elements that you guys look at a high level to do that due diligence and go through that process?
Right. So launching and onboarding here, generally you are, Skylar, as you suggested, we're going to need your fund formation documents. I'll always say, generally when you get to my level, or when I'm introduced tends to be towards the latter end of your launching period. So I'll always tell the manager, look, whatever you needed for your fund administrator, you're generally going to need for me. So that's going to be all your fund formation documents. Keep in mind that we will run a background check on all the general partners, and just make sure that they're, everything is uppity up.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I guess to your point on that as well, you mentioned when you get involved, is there a specific time you like to get involved from early on, or I know you said usually a lot of times later on it happens, but what do you prefer from a bank perspective?
My job and my role is to ensure that we get introduced early on. That's ideal for us. Most of the times we will, but oftentimes we are the forgotten service provider. And folks don't realize that, oh, wait, I do need a bank. So often we are introduced towards the latter side, and that'll tend to come from the fund administrators. So usually at any point throughout, we prefer the earlier because, banking could potentially be a problem, or take perhaps a little longer depending on who you're working with, but it often tends to be the latter.
Absolutely. David, I know how long does it take typically to open a bank account?
It could take, so the typical period, at least here, we take generally about 2 weeks to open a bank account or less.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from when we do get all the documents back from the client. So it's generally about a 2-week period. We do make it as simple as possible. Kind of things that managers should consider is, having somebody on the other side helping them with those documents, right? So when you're onboarding, you don't want perhaps an online system. You want an actual representative on the other end that's going to help you. So those are things, that they might want to consider having and looking.
For sure. Yeah. And then this next question here, I would say, maybe going back like 5 years, this was probably only relevant to crypto, but after kind of the, Signature, First Republic, fiasco 2023, should funds be thinking about having multiple bank accounts?
They can, yes, but hopefully that is that was a one-off. There is nothing wrong with having alternative banks. The way most banks will work, though, just to keep in mind, is that each sleeve for a fund generally has to be at the same bank. So if there is a master feeder structure, for example, there's going to be 3 accounts for that master feeder structure. That sleeve does need to be at one particular bank. But if you have a second master feeder fund, that's generally okay to have another bank. But most banks will not like or want a master feeder broken up between 2 separate banks. So multiple bank accounts, there's nothing wrong with having that, but per entity and per sort of sleeve, they generally need to remain at one bank.
Yeah. That makes sense. And just another question, Dave, regarding just money movements. Obviously, we talked about the interaction with the fund administrator is very closely knit there. We prefer, from a dual signatory point of view, the movement of money back and forth is a compliance best practice to have that check and balance on the admin side. What are your thoughts for folks, emerging managers, right? Read-only access versus dual signatory?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Skylar, that's a key and core kind of requirement for our bank. I always tell a manager, we don't know who you are. If 2 GPs had full control of an account and they wanted to take the money, they could do that. When accounts are added to the administrator's platform, remember, they're going to have an element of control on that account. So if the manager did try to act in, bad faith or bad interest and send the money out, the administrator will say, the money's not going. So absolutely, that core dual authorization is absolutely key. and in a to your point, best practice without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. And then obviously the bigger question that people always ask is, do I need to keep a certain amount of money in the bank account, right? From a merging manager point of view, that always gets brought up. And what does that look like? What are your thoughts on that?
So generally, no. There is no minimum balance requirements. So at least here, kind of at our bank, we do have a monthly fee and a wire fee. There is a no minimum balance requirements. There are other banks that might require minimum balance requirements, but at least here, there is a no minimum balance requirement.
Yeah. Are there, Dave, are there any other like services, on the front end, emerging managers looking for maybe lines of credit or lending relative to the bank's opportunities there they're looking for their portfolio? Does that come up on your side?
We get it. Emerging manager lending, the ability we do have, lending in general, emerging managers, it's more of a challenge for us. Yes, just simply being the more emerging manager, first time kind of manager tends to be a bit more difficult. But generally, overall, yes, lending is available and can be done on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask about the crypto. Is it harder for some funds to get bank accounts? Like, again, coming back to crypto, I know in the past, crypto is kind of a pain in the ass. Is it still the same? Maybe not even just crypto. Is it more difficult for some types of funds than others?
Yes, crypto has historically been more difficult to get the banks. There was an original, as you had mentioned earlier, kind of set of banks that had supported the sector. Wintrust was one of those. There are more banks that are entering the space. And with this new sort of political party in place, it's a little bit easier for banks. So it might be, yes, a little more difficult, but it's definitely there are more folks available to do it now.
Yeah. What have you seen, Dave, just in a high level, obviously, as a new manager's launching a fund, what are some common mistakes or things maybe they should do differently or we should look at as they're going into, launching a new product from a banking point of view?
Yeah, I tell managers when I speak to them, a couple things to keep in mind when you're shopping around for a bank. First is, generally when you get referred in, you're going to get a few banks. Work with the folks you like and want to work with. Second, look for stability, right? There's banks that have been doing this, for a couple of years. There's other banks that have been doing it for a long time. You want stability. That's, one thing. Second, I think you want to look for support, right? We had talked about earlier about onboarding. When you do your onboarding, you want to have folks there that are going to help you. You want people who are going to pick up the phone. That's very, very kind of important. And then third, I would say, you want a bank that has the experience in this space. You're going to look for people that, can support you. We want to view ourselves as a partner as well, same as all the other service providers that are out there. We want to be a partner to folks within the space. So if you do want to call, if you do need referrals, you want kind of a banking partner that has all of those. So there are, yes, extra things to look for that I think is very important for managers. And the other thing too is cost isn't everything. Very fortunate. The banking is not particularly expensive in general. You get what you pay for.
On that note, David, what does a bank typically go for? So we're just looking for like ballpark numbers. We don't need like specific names or anything, but like what could somebody generally expect to pay for a bank?
So generally, we spoke earlier. Some banks might have a minimum balance requirement, right? If there's a minimum balance requirement, they probably won't have some sort of monthly fee. But for the folks that have a monthly fee, it's, it could be anywhere probably from $25 all the way up to, $200 a month. Plus there's wire fees. So it can range. But but you know,
That's good.
there's no onboarding. Remember, typically keep all of those sort of factors. Make sure you're comparing apples to apples.
And I mean, everything goes through a wire too, right? It's like when investors are always sending money through a wire, and then you're always generally, I guess, outgoing money is coming through a wire. So that's
right.
Probably where a lot of the payments go. Yeah.
Banks are going to require, and especially within that subscription redemption account that we spoke about earlier, that's the LP account. We're going to want all of those in wires. You don't want those coming in via ACH or checks. Remember, checks and ACH can be pulled back. So you want the wire in and the money stays.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dave. But given that a lot of fund managers ask about, make it easier to avoid the wire fee, can we just do all ACH? Exactly. And there's a reason why you don't want to do that, right?
That's exactly right. ACHs can be pulled back.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Good stuff.
So Dave, when someone's looking to move forward, what, are they, do they need to go into a bank location, or they can do it all digitally? What's the process on your side?
Yeah, so that's actually a good question. No, you do not need to have kind of a physical branch or location that you have to go into. Very fortunately, all of this can be done online via DocuSign. And, again, all your money's coming into and out of will be via wire. So the very fortunate thing is, no, you don't need physical presence, branch presence. Everything can be done nowadays via DocuSign and online. It's all through secure links. All documents are able to be uploaded.
That's great. And to your point, obviously, the main points are having the support, being able to pick up the phone and call you guys to get the support they need on an ongoing basis is the most probably important.
And being able to have someone to walk through the questionnaire, to pull those documents, to check those documents. It does make things very, very simple, or much, much easier as an emerging manager. Leave it to the experts to get those documents for you or to help you.
I love it. That's great.
Cool. Well, David, I think that this is a good spot to wrap up. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you joining us. Appreciate you informing us on the bank side of things. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about Wintrust?
Just please go to wintrustfundsgroup.com. And I'm happy to help them out in any way. But guys, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, this has been great. They appreciate you providing the insight on the banking side of things. We'll make sure to include all your contact info in the show notes as well.
Thank you once again to our friends at Richey May for sponsoring this episode. If you're starting a fund, you need an auditor. Make sure to give our friends at Richey May a call and tell them we sent you.